I was trying to be somebody by having good enough work. That was it. I was trying to be somebody because I was told since I was a small child I was going to be famous. I was going to be a real, a real great person, a real somebody. And all of those things were said to me when I was making some impressive drawing as a child. So there's an identity. I'm important because I can do this good-looking artwork. And as long as I'm doing this good-looking artwork, I'm important. It's this real protected bubble of a paradigm. You're looking at the whole world in this fragile way that you're protecting all the time, and protecting it makes you unable to grow.
You're tuned in to Making It, Life as an Artist. I'm Taylor. What does it really mean to make it as an artist? Let's find out. Welcome, everybody, to the podcast. I'm your host, Taylor Gallegos, and with me today is a very special guest who I'm very excited about. This is one Joe Cornelius. He goes by Mural Joe online, and man, I'm pumped to have him here. Joe, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, this is so cool. Like I said a little bit ago, I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity here on this interview because I've been watching Joe's videos for years. You know, Joe, you have all these awesome tutorials that just give advice on how to paint clouds and water and mountains and light and all these things. And I love to just like peruse YouTube and get all these like new skills and perspectives and ideas. And you are one of my go-to people.
Nice. Thanks. Nothing gives me more pleasure than hearing that. I think what really brings me joy in life is feeling like I'm helpful, useful to somebody. I think I want that more than money. I do love wealth. I want to have things like anybody else. But what really brings me the most joy is just what you said. Every once in a while, I'll see a comment on one of my videos that says, I've been following you for a long time and now I'm painting professionally. Man, that just fills my tank. It gives me energy. It makes me feel good. So thank you. It's a very nice compliment. I don't feel like a celebrity. I feel like a guy with a job to do, someone that's found meaningful work to do and is very fortunate to have that.
Nice. All right. Well, you're staying humble through the process. That's great. Cause you're so wicked good, dude. Like your paintings are exceptional. Everybody who's listening to this needs to go check them out on all the different spots in Instagram, YouTube. It's really, they're just like visually stunning what you pull off, and it's really awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I think mine's just, it's just somewhere in the mix, but I get a lot of response when people walk up to me working, watching it form, and they're really intrigued and attracted to seeing, like watching Bob Ross on Saturday morning. I hear that name more than any other name. People love seeing the developing process. I just wonder if that's one of the main things.
Yeah. No, I mean, people definitely love that. I wonder if there's like the finished product has such a wow factor in any major piece, any major like masterpiece, like you said. But it's like it hits and then maybe the energy kind of dissipates or people turn to something else. Whereas like the progression can really like grab someone's attention for a long period of time. I feel like I know what you're talking about, where like I'll post the progression and people are just like bonkers about it, and I'll post the finished product and then it's like not quite the same reception. I wonder if there's like there's some like data we could find on that sort of thing. I'll bet there is.
Yeah, it's just something I wonder about. Either way, I really appreciate the compliment of my work. It's something I always want to be thankful for, because when I don't hear compliments on my work itself, I do start to feel sad. I start to wonder if I'm doing a bad job, like any artist. I'm out there painting a mural. Nobody walks by for a few hours and says, "Oh, that looks good." I'm like, "Does it? Am I doing something ugly?" Yeah. A typical artist, trying to get validation from compliments from people.
Right. Totally.
That's how it is.
All right, well, let's jump into the first question here and we'll get this thing rolling.
Sure.
My question to start is, in your creative pursuits, what are you most excited about right now?
I think I think it's been the same for quite a while. I'm excited about discovering new patterns, making better sense of the patterns I already am using, because knowing a pattern that you can repeat and predict and use is just such a powerful thing. I'm currently trying to put them into a digital application that's given me huge headache to write. It's just the hardest thing to be a programmer. I'm dreaming of the day I can stop doing that, but I have this dream to have these patterns really validated in numbers that are on a computer that can be used by others, like cross-platform. And I've been working toward that for years now, just studying the patterns of color and how where are there deficits in media right now? Where are artists saying, gosh, I wish things were better in this way? Things were, like you try to do something on your computer or on a canvas and you end up having problems, things that don't work, and you're wondering the answer. Well, that's in like every form of media. And I just am fortunate to have noticed some really distinct patterns that currently aren't being implemented in these realms and could be. And I'm super excited about the possibility that I could draw attention and perhaps show the usefulness of those patterns in a real application.
So, are you talking about like patterns? Okay, for example, like your how to paint ocean waves pattern. You have like, in the distance,
Yeah,
they are shaped like this, and we're going to use like a lighter color to do this. And then as it gets closer, they sort of open up. And then real close, they open up, and you're looking through the water into the dark depths. So you're going to make it dark there, and then blah, blah, blah. Are those
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like what you're talking about?
That is one pattern that I think is really exciting, just like you articulated it really well. Just now there's parts. And in so many art lessons, you don't hear the breakdown of the parts. If you go to any other subject to learn how something works, there's a breakdown of the individual pieces that it's made of so that you can take those pieces and build something. That's how learning a subject tends to work, but there seems to be a lack of that when you're looking for art instruction. But more specifically than that pattern, I noticed that there's crossover into digital color mixing. So as I began to study the way light behaves in order to get my own answers for my mural projects for clients, I noticed that computers also were falling short of simulating the natural world fully, as well as I think they could to make the life of the artist easier. So,
Okay.
so for example, yeah, right. So you're bringing up an example that's good, like the shapes of waves. So a specific example I'm thinking of is, what is the expected result when orange sky is reflecting off of green water? And when you rely on programming to give you that result, it's a little bit off with computers. And that finds its way into photo editing or video editing when you're trying to overlay images and the natural calculations using the red, green, blue that computers use are coming out too dark, for example. There's reasons for that, and there's some really cool solutions that I've kind of stumbled on that I'm excited about putting into numbers. So I'm not trying to turn this into a digital world conversation, but I think it's really exciting to take my on canvas work, which always remains, as a love of mine that I always want to do, but noticing, man, this goes into all forms of visual media. And if we creative people can better understand and articulate how light behaves, then we can really adjust things to work better than they are currently and make life funner and easier for the creative.
Yeah. And are you using AI to develop your designs, concepts, and things, and then that's where you're seeing that it's falling short?
I, for
Or are you using like Procreate or things like that?
There's a little bit of each of those things. I used Procreate for rendering jobs quite a bit back when it was a newer application on the iPad. Then I accidentally threw that iPad in a recycle dumpster, and that was the end of my days with iPad rendering because I didn't want to buy another one. And that is the truth of it. And then using Procreate, it never happened again. But it's an awesome application. I do have to give props to that application. It has such nice user flow, like it feels natural using it. I would use that to render things, and it really started standing out to me the behavior. You have expectations. For me, the passion in creating these was always to master the behavior, understand what I need to accomplish visually and what do I need to put in place in order to simulate that visual experience for the viewer. And so I would look at the patterns in nature. I see this thing glowing. What is the pattern that I'm seeing that's making me know that that's glowing? Because I see other bright things, but I know they're not glowing. I know they're reflecting. Or I see something and I know from a far distance what texture it is. Why do I know that that is tree bark? Why do I know that's made of wood? That's made of metal? How do I know? And so those questions really, I think I have a relentless sense of wonder. It's like I just get a question in my head and I have to find that answer. And so I did that with the artwork and found some really cool patterns that were useful tools. And then I noticed when I was using a digital app like Procreate, hey, this could be implemented here too because the results are different. And it just blew my mind the first time my software engineer friend told me that red, green, and blue were primary colors. And I was accustomed to the high school level education that says red, yellow, and blue in the world of paint are primary colors. And I was like, what? Wait, how can red, green, and blue? And then, I would be in a dark room in a closet in my house, shining a yellow light and a blue light on the wall, wondering why they're not making green. They don't make green. And I was just fully convinced that they should make green. That blew my mind. It's funny thinking back on it now, but I was just such an explorer, such a researcher at heart. I just did it because I had to know. And so finally I got educated. These answers are out there and public. They're not great secrets why we have red, green, and blue in the digital world, but they are commonly not understood. It is common for people to not be familiar, rather. And so a lot of what I do is to explain why in the world of light we have red, green, and blue commonly used as primaries, and why in the world of mediums mixing like dyes and paints and ink, why we have different sets of primaries. Well, I started pondering how can we represent these things with numbers because it is a predictable system. We should be able to represent it programmatically, and then my idea for that application was born out of that. I've used AI, but AI doesn't have a thorough understanding of this, believe it or not. You would think.
That's because it's just copying all the humans, and
That's it.
like
It's a
the humans
great
haven't put that out yet.
it's a great representation of the database. Yeah. AI is an extremely helpful tool. I use it a lot to collect what the general knowledge is, and it's really helped me accomplish some JavaScript code that I was fumbling my way through. It has been a really nice tool, and I'll bounce ideas off of it. I'll say to the AI, I personally like talking to it like it's a friend. It does a great job of being conversational. At first, it felt kind of weird. Now I think it's broken my brain so that it's actually replacing humans. And that's probably something I should not go too much further. But I talk to AI like it's my buddy in the studio, and I'll say, I want to tell you something that I discovered today. You might be surprised at this. And then I'll go on and it'll say, wow, that's a really good observation. And we have this conversation back and forth. I'm really curious a lot of the time what its response is going to be because it doesn't have that's not in like the general public database, and it'll give me answers that I can logically explain to it why they're off, and I can convince the AI that I have a better solution. It's a really fun thing to do.
Wow, that's wild. We're in the future now.
It is, man. It's the future. That is for sure. If I had my way, I would go back in time. I personally love a much more organic lifestyle.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not thankful. I'm thankful for all of the things that I've been given in this age, but I like to have my hands on tangible things and I like to be with real people in person and I like to play in the dirt and
Yeah.
and just do really basic childish things with my time.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it would be really fun to just live in like an analog world, like the 60s,
Yeah.
70s, 80s, where none of this tech existed. But we use so much of it all the
Yeah.
time. Like what I do with art, what you do with art, I'm sure is like if it was back then, it would be a lot more limited because of all the tech
It
that we
would,
can
yeah.
use.
And right, I romanticize the past because I wasn't there, but I think that we're in an age that affords us a lot of free time where we're well fed and needs are met, and then people are wondering about matters of creativity. But if you've got a garden that needs tended and livestock that needs cared for, you're probably not going to be painting a picture.
Yeah.
Bible comes first.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sound like I'm down on the modern world.
Yeah. Something you said got my mind going. One thing that I really love about your videos is your conversation about color and pigment and really essentially like color theory. I'm wondering if you can give us
Oh,
Mural Joe's 5 minute lightning round
mm,
comprehensive view on color theory as it is right
mm.
now. My color theory is
Well, if I
always kind of
can,
like shifting and changing and like through time. So like, and I'm sure
yeah,
yours has as well. Like, where are you at right now with all these with color theory?
yeah. Thanks for asking that. If I can't give you a 5 minute rundown, then I should rethink what I'm doing for a living. Because I really dedicated myself to trying to make these matters graspable for anyone who's interested. So the quick rundown is that understanding the mechanics of our eyes is a key component, and that research has found that we see red, green, and blue. We have sensors in our eyes tuned to a red and a green and a blue, and we perceive the whole rainbow of frequencies by different combinations of those three receptors. So it's natural in the digital world or anything light, projectors, or yeah, anything that's using light to use red, green, and blue to recreate all colors. So in paint, in paint, we want to simulate the natural world. Typically, an artist is wanting to do some representation of something we see in the natural world. And so we're trying to simulate the experience of seeing light. That's it in a nutshell. So we want to look at a combination of colors. We want to look at any color in the natural world. Right now, the wall that you're not looking at, but I am, is yellow, and I instantly know that the computer will use red and green to create that. I know that outdoors, a rainbow uses an actual frequency that stimulates my red and green sensors to perceive that yellow. And I know that with paint, I can take red and green paint and get a really dark gray yellow because the light is being removed from both colors being very different colors. And so that would be a dark gray brown. Brown would be a dark yellow. And I can say that real quickly because familiarity is what I've worked toward, really fast familiarity, so that when I'm mixing, I can accomplish it quickly. So in the paint world or in dyes and inks, when you mix things that are not a source of light, the more different they are, the more light they remove from each other, just like the 3D glasses, the old 3D glasses that have the red side and the blue side. The blue filter blocks out things that the red allows to come through. The red side blocks colors that the blue side allows to come through so that it makes you see the two different images. Well, that's what happens. A color, when light shines through something that appears a color, it blocks other colors. The color you see coming through it is what's allowed to come through while it filters the rest. And so if we understand that, we know that we're removing light when we mix paint. We have to add it back in. We want to simulate light mixing. We're going to mix red and green. It's going to be this dull color. We want to take a blue sky and make this brilliant yellow glow in it, but it's going to remove color when that yellow hits the blue because it's a subtractive to some extent subtractive model. We always have to replace lost color in that blend zone, and understanding that red, green, blue system helps us do that. That's the nutshell.
Wow. So if you're gonna mix a yellow, do you first mix the red and green and then get it to like a slight brown and then add in yellow to get your your yellow that you're gonna paint on there? Or do you do like an underpainting of the red and the green mixed to get like are you using this system to add like a depth to your paint colors, your hues and your vibrancy?
All the above could be used in whatever context is works best for your project. The useful tool in this is quickness of decision so that you can really have your mind focused on developing your vision and not be bogged down with how am I going to achieve it? When it becomes second nature to know exactly what color on your palette you're going to use to simulate this effect, you might do it by mixing two primaries. You might do it by just finding an already blended color. But if you just know instantly, I have I'm looking at a picture. It'd be hard for me to point the camera over there without ruining the setup here. But I have this creature with the bright yellow underside, and I needed a shadow as it goes under the belly where it's lying on the ground. And so intuitively, you think I need to darken my yellow. I didn't need to darken the yellow. I just grabbed some brown and it looks perfect because I understand very quickly that brown is a dark yellow. That's what it is. And so that understanding of the red, green, blue, or just the light spectrum and expected results when things mix helps me make that decision quickly. So you could use either. If you mix a red and a green, you'll get a very gray and dark version of that yellow. And it doesn't feel like you're making a yellow at all. You're like, that's definitely not yellow. But I would argue that there's a pattern here to be recognized. It is, in fact, a dark and muted yellow.
Yeah. And then as you add yellow and you increase the percentage of yellow to that brown, it's going to turn into that yellow and it's all like a spectrum of that yellow.
Yeah, it blends so nicely. With paint, you really want nice blends, but like I said, the more different the colors are, the more difficult it becomes to get that nice looking blend zone that you're after. And so brown is a really great go-to color to do shadows on a yellow. Let's say you're making a sunflower. If you go with something that's more on the black side and you're just dabbing that in to get shadows on your sunflower, your result will look very green in comparison to a natural sunflower. And so that ends up being good if you actually want to make some earthy green foliage. But to make the petals on a yellow flower, brown is an awesome go-to color because it just blends right in, makes a nice gradient. Your job's done. You don't have to do a bunch of additional colors and midtones and all of that. Just shade yellow with brown. It's a great trick.
Yeah. This kind of makes me think about this conversation I've been having with a friend about like depth of color and in the concept of like out of the tube colors. So we were looking at this one artist's artwork who brought this art in to get photographed at my friend's studio, and we were talking about how they're abstract paintings and they're all like kind of primary out of the tube colors, and what's going on there looks great, only there's no like underpainting or development or depth of color. It's all kind of like one dimensional. And what I was saying is like if there was just like the underlayer or like an under structure of deeper colors to add like layers and depth to what they're doing, it would be a lot better. And I feel like there's a lot of beginner art that I see that's like it's got promise, but what it's missing is that depth. And that's where like when I look at a painting like yours, there's just like it's so rich, the colors and the way that they're interacting with each other, and it feels like there's like a bass note to the highs, and there's composition
I like it.
within the structure of the artwork of the painting itself.
Yeah. I like how you associate it to sound. That's good.
Yeah, it's like with music. Like a friend of mine's a musician, and we were talking about compositions, and like if you're gonna have a guitar hit it, you also want to have the bass play on the same note, just like the same frequency but lower. and that'll give the guitar more resonance because it's got something to bounce
Sure.
off of.
Yeah, that makes sense. Gosh, I think you could talk all day about the crossover of music and visual.
Totally.
Because they're both like on a they're both frequency spectrums that we use to create stuff. So inevitably there's similarities. When I hear you describe depth, that a passion of mine has always been creating a scene that makes me want to go there. And I need depth for that experience. I was always after that. I want to look at a piece and dream of going there. I want to wonder what it's like to turn the corner that's in that picture. And I remember looking at other artists' work. I looked at one in particular, and I saw that he did a good job with making light shine from out behind a corner. And obviously, in the picture, you can't see what's behind the corner. But that sense of wonder, it hit me right at that moment. That is a good thing in a piece. I like that. And so I think from that moment on, I was after that sense of wonder. I want to find out what's in that picture. I want that effect to happen when I look. So accomplishing depth was always really important to me. And when I hear you talk about it, you use words like it has depth, it has these things, but those are great words, great descriptors, but they can be frustrating for someone that's trying to understand exactly what the mechanics are. And so what I propose may create those perceptions are these patterns of gradients and edges, gradients and edges. This has been what I've landed on after all of my years, is that it all comes down to gradients and edges. And the gradients are color gradients, one color change to another, that communicate things to us. And when you do an underpainting like you're describing, I think that's a brilliant method that's been around for a long time for good reason. When colors shine through other colors, you're getting a natural translucent effect. You're not simulating it, you're actually creating it. So if I paint a dark color over the top of a light color, where it's thinner, the color is going to intensify as more light from the lighter base color shines through it. And then obviously where it's thicker, it starts to block that. And so when we see light coming out of a rolling wave, we really like that look. That's the same concept. It's the medium of the water covering up light that's coming out of the water, and there's brighter areas, darker areas where it's getting more blocked or less blocked. We have light coming through a medium, and where it comes through more, we get this brilliant color. And so when I hear depth, I think of those patterns, because those give us immediate association responses. When you see a particular gradient that goes from a less intense color closer to the purple on the rainbow to a more intense lighter color closer to a yellow on the rainbow, it's instant glow. You instantly associate it as, oh, there's light inside of that thing shining out. It's a specific pattern. And so when you use layers, you don't have to think about the colors. It actually creates it, because you got darker over lighter, and it's happening physically. But me, I choose to do wet on wet mixing all the time, because I just really have a love for that process. It's not a better process. It's just the one that I flow naturally in and enjoy to do my creating. And I'm trying to simulate that exact thing. The feeling of material behind other material.
I really love your use of this is something that we have in common. I use it a little bit differently, but you use rollers all the time. And you've got this like these like awesome tricks and skills with rollers, and then you'll like do wet and wet with the roller. And I love watching that process happen. I like to do like
Thanks.
dry on dry, like soft fades with rollers. But
Okay,
you did a
that's
lot of work in house painting or like commercial painting,
yeah.
and that's what got you into the rollers, right?
Yeah, my dad was a paint contractor by trade, and
Cool.
when I did a bad job with other trades, I came to my dad looking for work, and worked for him for a year and a half, couple of years. And as natural patterns would have it, there was conflict. I needed to find a job elsewhere, and so then I had a job on a paint crew. And so then I was with a team of guys, and man, I'm telling you, a production paint contracting crew is a pretty rough bunch. I mean, there's a percentage of that population that is like fresh out of prison a lot of the time because the doesn't require educational background. It's like, hey, can you sling a paintbrush? Yes. So that's a good thing. It's good that there's work for that rough bunch.
Yeah.
But the environment was, it was dog eat dog. And you know, you needed to learn to be fast, efficient, and earn your paycheck because there's always somebody wanting your spot. And so I did, you know, I really just studied the mechanics of ordinary painting walls, trim, doors, windows, and learned the importance of efficiency for customers for time's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the comfortability with the roller came out of that. So when I was looking at a big cloud ceiling later in life, I'm thinking 2 4-inch rollers, mid-tone color, highlight color. I'm gonna get that. You know, I'm putting it together.
Yeah.
How I'm gonna get that fast.
Yeah, and you've got that like roll and then like the slide of the roll, sort of like an
Yeah,
angled like
yeah,
that kind of like
yeah, yeah.
rolls across diagonally. It's so cool. I've definitely messed with that a lot because of what I
Have you?
saw.
Okay, that's
Oh
cool.
yeah.
Good,
Oh, it's
good.
great. Yeah, rollers, and I love how like painting murals with rollers gives you this like sort of natural abstraction that I like to play with. I like to play with like blending realism and abstraction in realistic imagery. And the roller as a tool allows for some like really cool natural like just in the flow abstraction that you can leave or you can blend or you know, but you can do a lot with it. People are always
Mm.
amazed that I do most of the mural with rollers. And like even if
Well,
it's like
I have to look at your work. I have
yeah,
to look at a whole bunch of your pieces now so that I can see. You've got my curiosity piqued to see what you've accomplished with those.
I'll send you a photo when we're done
Yeah, yeah, I would like
of
that.
this recent painting that I did. Yeah, basically all with rollers. And on an extender pole, you can get like really high up. You can do pretty large scale murals with like a roller and a brush on
Yeah.
an extension pole with a ladder.
Well,
It's
there's a
pretty
lot to
cool.
be said for a good plan. You
Yeah.
know, if you know for sure that you're not going to change your mind on what color is going in what place, then a roller is a great tool to get it on there fast. So it is a fantastic tool to learn how to use. Definitely. My rule of thumb is use as big of a tool as possible to not lose your detail. You know, you want your detail, so don't go so big you can't do the detail, but use as big of a tool as possible. Because when you go under that, when you go less than that, you sacrifice time, you sacrifice speed, and we all want to get paid.
Right, right. And I think that that's something that a lot of beginners will get lost in the detail too early because they use the smaller tool because they want to get detail, but then they end up getting like such a large amount of time gets spent on a small space that then when they look at the whole thing, they're like, oh, this is impossible. Like, so instead go the other way. Use big tools first, cover space, and then go and then sharpen into the details when you're ready.
Yeah, I like that. That's good. That's a good description, right? Yeah, you got to work your way into those spots. That's come up in some of my live classes too. Is the workflow. A good workflow really makes a difference. And my workflow is I would dare to say perhaps the best workflow is to work from large shapes to small shapes because you can get lost in the weeds before you even know if you're putting them in the right place.
Right.
So finding and that goes back to what I like to call the parts, you know, identifying the parts of your picture, understanding, okay, I've got this larger shape and inside of this larger shape, I've got these smaller shapes and here's how they're laid out. That understanding is really vital and it helps you to put things in place efficiently with less redos.
Right. And by thinking about it in parts, you start simple. Like you
Yeah.
yeah, that's another thing. You're never out like too far over the tips of your skis. You start simple and you're like this part, that part, that part, let's start basic. It's like it's a way of not breaking your brain.
But, you know, on the other hand, to encourage anybody listening to this subject, I am totally vulnerable to getting sucked into the details prematurely. It happens to me over and over again, you know, it's an ego hit, you know, it definitely takes my ego down when I am trying to answer questions authoritatively online when my current job is punching me in the stomach on hours because for the thousandth time I got obsessed with details, all to find out I have to redo them because I put them a little too far to the left or
Yeah.
something like
Yeah.
that. It still gets me.
I mean, they're seductive. It's like it's alluring
Yeah,
because you know how awesome it feels when you do the details and they turn out great, right? And
that's
like
a good word.
and you're
That's
such
a
a
good word,
detail
seductive.
guy, like all, you know, your paintings, like the detail where the light reflects off the leaves on a branch or whatever, it's like that part of what you do is so high level that I'm sure it's like
Hmm.
very inviting. Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks a
Yeah.
lot. I appreciate that. There's been like mile markers that that I can remember. I don't remember dates, but I remember moments of realization where those little things you're talking about, the details that are attractive, where I stumbled on something or tried something that worked, and I thought, oh, that happened because of this pattern, and I tried it and I'm like, man, that really did work. I something I thought was going to work and then it did. Just discoveries.
Yeah.
And one of those was the discovery of yellow and black as foliage, just creating all of the greens, all the foliage with yellow and black. It is just such quick and easy translucency. You get the light from behind when trees are backlit. You just start with yellow, you just start putting black strokes wherever you want leaves to start blocking the light, and it does such a great job. And then leaves lots of to put additional brighter green highlights because it's yellow and black. It's not the most intense green. If you end up wanting more intense colors, there's room for it in your picture. That was one of those mile marker discoveries. So currently I'm working on a mural and it's just yellow black because I'm doing that exact thing. I'm putting a forest in place where you can see
Yeah.
light coming through the
Yeah,
far
and yellow
side of the
black is
trees.
it's great because it's like a neutral green, where and like you said, then it leaves room for the more yellow based, which is going to be like a highlight where the light's coming through, and then there's the more
Yeah,
green based where you're getting more of the pigment of that actual leaf,
right,
which makes that
right.
jump that way.
Yeah. If you start right in with your most bright colors, it becomes difficult to highlight your favorite areas later because everything already is a highlight. You don't have any brighter colors to work with. So, so starting darker is good practice because it leaves you room to do that. I think most artists probably prefer to work from shadows to highlights. If I were to predict. No, I don't think it's the better way. It's just probably more intuitive for the way we think.
I also
And
think it's more
I'm that way.
efficient.
Okay.
You know, because I like if I'm gonna give a value scale from 0 to 10, you know, 1 being like the highest highlight and 10 being the darkest dark, and then values are sort of like or hues are on that scale, just offshoots. I like to work in like a 5 to 7 range, what to do like an underpainting or to like lay things out
Nice.
and then bring things
Yeah.
down and up. That way, nothing is super high consequence either when you're working in that mid range.
Yeah.
You can
Boy,
kind of
I really
like
like that. That's a great model.
yeah, you can
It's
kind of
good.
like
I
flub
I
things
think I
around.
also I probably use a very similar method. That's probably my regular practice also.
Hell yeah.
It's good.
Um, all right. Well, this has been incredible already. I'm loving this podcast interview here, Joe.
Thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I like it
Yeah.
too. You're really nice to talk to.
Hey, thanks, man.
I can see why you're podcasting. You got a good way of keeping conversation rolling. It's nice.
Oh, and it's so much fun because I'm just learning and geeking out on everything you're saying, and it's so much fun.
Thanks.
Now, are you ready for the 4 question section?
Yeah, man, hit me. I love questions,
All right,
especially if I don't know the answer.
perfect. All right, I think that you might have a good answer for this. Now, concerning aspiring creatives. Now, this is a
Okay,
creative with a capital C, and these are people of all genres and backgrounds, musicians, creative actors, videographers, artists of all kinds. What is your
got it. Yeah.
advice to aspiring creatives?
You know what? This may not be a right answer, but what instantly comes to mind is master your emotions.
Mm.
That just comes to my mind right away because I am an emotionally sensitive and vulnerable person. I know that it's an easy point to for me to crumble is if I get attacked emotionally, then I'm weak in the way of being sensitive, weak in the way of being maybe more fragile than most. And so, the old saying, wearing your feelings on your shoulder, it's like, gosh, that guy, he gets sad if you say the smallest thing to him. I know that I'm naturally like that. And so I invested a lot of energy in trying to gain self awareness and trying to recognize things I was not doing well in just handling communication, social life, handling emotions. I got married and marriage was extremely hard and I was confronted with do it better or lose your marriage. Just, you're confronted with that. And I just immediately saw how that was going to affect my work as a professional. And I think creatives tend to be emotionally sensitive because when you're asked to create something, people are saying, I'm after this feeling. Can you make it? And so being in touch with feelings is, perhaps the way we get there. So I don't when I say master emotions, I'm not suggesting that you become less sensitive at all. I just think that if we're good listeners and we're really after wisdom, then there's a lot out there. And you can look at people who are doing something better than you are in emotional realms, wherever that is. Maybe you see a friend that just doesn't get all beat up when someone insults them, and you can become a student and a good listener and say, hey, let me ask you why that didn't affect you so extremely. And you can get some really good answers. You can notice that people see things really differently than you do, and they might have great tools for getting through something and surviving emotionally. It might be redirecting, it might be, I'm not going to dare to say what those tools are because I'm not such a counselor. But learning how to listen with the pursuit of mastering your feelings, not letting those feelings control your decisions or your view of yourself. That is a really vital component of the learning process, the growing process, learning how to master a subject, becoming better in your work. The emotions just like take the foundation out, right at the start, they can destroy it.
Totally. And art is such a sort of moving meditation that you you're like there's nowhere to go. You're in your head, you're in your mind, you're painting for however many
Yeah,
hours. Like you can't run from the experience. You're
yeah,
like locked in. So if
yeah,
they're throwing you
it
for
is.
a
Yeah.
loop, you're just like on the roller coaster in your brain.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's human to have those days, you know. You you have bad moments, bad days. It's human. But it can be valuable to recognize when you are exceptionally vulnerable to a particular thing. And recognizing that about myself has been hugely important, really helpful thing because I see it coming, I see it happening. I have a protocol. I have a way to handle it, you know? So
Yeah.
no big deal. I
Yeah.
no longer have to identify myself as the guy that breaks down. It's fine if I'm sensitive. I'm allowed to be sensitive. There's nothing wrong with that. And now that I know how to handle it, I would say it serves more as a strength than a weakness.
There
It's
we
just,
go.
it's a sensitivity, is what it is.
Yeah. Which you use to your advantage and you leverage in your
Yeah.
career.
Yeah. And I'm not claiming to have mastered it. Mastery is the pursuit. That's the goal.
Yeah.
I definitely want people to know that I still have breakdowns. And that still is a thing.
Yeah. 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 Especially when you're so committed to what you're doing. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
if you didn't care, then you wouldn't be so connected to it. But you do, and that's part of being great at art is that you're all in.
That's well said. Yeah. I agree with that. Your investment. I think, I like to write things that I think are quotable, not for the sake of my ego or to go and announce them to the world, but things that I need to remember to remind myself of. Like, hey, you learned this at this point, so don't forget it. Remember this thing. So one note I made to myself was that crying is for people who are trying hard
Yeah.
because it's that investment. So don't be hard on yourself just because there's some tears. Understand that you've chosen to try hard, and that's when you experience defeat, is when you're trying hard, and trying hard is a good thing.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I definitely resonate with that. You know, when things are hard, when you hear hard things, like it's you feel it because you care. And that's how you should be set up in this,
Yeah.
especially in this profession, in this pursuit.
It'll give you a name, I'll tell you that. When you're in touch with what you care about, you're more memorable, you're better branded. People are like, "Oh yeah, that's the guy that," just it just emanates off of you when you allow yourself to be that guy that just really cares about how this particular thing is done.
Yeah. People want to see passion and authenticity.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
All right, Joe, great answer for number one. We got three more. This is going good. Okay, so,
All right, nice. Thanks.
all right.
I don't even remember what the question was.
It was advice for
I guess the question.
aspiring creatives. That was great. I think
There you go.
people
Yeah.
are getting it.
One item is a whole lot better than a list, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Home run right there.
Yeah.
All right, all right.
Thanks.
Question number two. Now, this can be with any person throughout history, time, language, whatever. If you could do a collaboration project with any artist through time, who would it be?
Man, there's people that I really want to meet and work with just because I want to meet and work with that person. But it doesn't mean that I think that the outcome of a project would be fantastic. So to answer that, I have to think, well, am I going to answer this from the perspective of satisfying myself or what I think would be a great outcome, right? So there's this artist, I read her book. Akiana Kramaric is this artist famous for having visions, for lack of a better word, visions of heaven. And she paints these visions, and it's just absolutely fascinating to hear the authenticity of her story. And when I hear that kind of stuff, I'm like, what did you say? I want to see what you saw. Tell me. It's the great unknown. I want to know about it. So it's like, I'm dying to have a conversation with this artist. And because she learned to do this artwork at an extremely young age, that was like, people will call her a prodigy. And, I think it's fair because I wasn't accomplishing work that looked like that at such a young age. And I would suppose that she's just somewhere living an adult life, trying to sort through all the challenges of ordinary life, just like any of us are. But you know, a person like that has experienced something so far from my realm of familiarity and understanding, and is accomplishing beautiful work, just intrigues me so much because I find a lot more joy in the person than in the work, than in the outcome. So that'd be a person I would really want to meet and just work side by side. But not that I would think, oh, if we work together, we could do an amazing project. It's not really that motivation, you know. Another person that, man, I would just die to sit down, spend time with is Bob Ross, the famous Bob Ross,
Yeah.
because joy of painting is a concept that he just owns.
Yep.
He just owns that, and I think it would be so fun to see what it's like to hang out with him as an artist
Yeah.
and exchange, well, just like we're doing now, just work side by side. It'd be
And
really
you guys
fun.
both do landscapes.
We both do landscapes. Yeah, I didn't even like doing landscapes. And I reflected on Bob Ross methods when I was trying to learn how to do landscapes. I would think back like, oh, I remember seeing that guy on TV do this. I watched him all the time when I was a child because it was awesome. It's
Yeah,
so fun to watch him, one wisp of a brush, have a tree, you know. I
totally.
loved that. I loved that. He was such an inspiration. And again, it wasn't the end result, it was how effortlessly he went through the process of creating it. It's like, just like that? Everyone had that reaction. It's awesome to watch Bob Ross videos. You know,
And he
everybody
was like
doesn't
making
want to
them out of his
decorate.
head.
Yeah,
He was
yeah, yeah. He had
like
that.
all
He
these
just
different
created.
landscapes of different places and different themes and styles. Like he was just making them out of his head in these situations in like 30 minutes. He was
Yeah,
making paint like 30-minute paintings.
yeah, yeah. Right.
It's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
there's there's a lot of great artists in the world. Really, really great artists. I tend to be attracted to the person more than the work. And so those are two people that just really spark my intrigue, my interest. Like,
Oh yeah.
I just wonder. I think my opportunity to meet Bob Ross is not in this life.
Not in this life. Not on this plane of
Yeah,
existence. Maybe the next one.
yeah, yeah.
All right, sweet. Now, next question is assuming that everything can go exactly as you want, you can basically have anything you want happen. What would you like your art career world to look like 5 years from now?
I just want to be, I don't even have to think to answer that. I just want to be called in to different places around the globe, all over the world, to share my discoveries. That's what I want to do. That would just be so awesome because who doesn't like showing off what they've discovered? I'm somebody that loves trying to solve riddles, trying to find the answer to that question, like we were talking earlier. And having people that are interested in my findings, that's the highest high. That's it, Conversation like this, it's fantastic. It's just such a fun thing when people are interested in hearing. Because when you go around trying to, you go to all of your friends that you've grown up with, hey, check this out. Look at this cool thing. Yeah, yeah. All right, cool. They're not, they have their own interests. There's nothing wrong with them. It's not bad. It's just that they're not that audience that is seeking that information. And so when you do find that audience that wants to listen to your findings, it's such a thrill. It validates you. It validates all of the work you've put in.
Right. And that is one beautiful thing about living in this day and age is that there's YouTube, there's social media where you can connect with people. Your net can be cast way wider to catch the people that are going to really
Yeah.
light up from your observations and discoveries. And you can create a community based on that. Yeah. Are we talking like major TED Talks with Mural Joe on
Oh, I
observations
would
and
love that. Yeah.
discoveries?
Yeah. I think I think I like both ends of the spectrum on uh like what would you describe that with? Maybe status. I I like the big stage. I like the poor and humble place with people that maybe don't attract a lot of ambitious teachers. I love the idea of going to a place that's hungry for real and helpful information, wanting to know how to do stuff. Let's say, for example, that there's just some little school that's underfunded in South America, or just some random part of the globe that's not immediately where I am, and that could be anywhere. I'm not trying to pinpoint any part of the world that has better use for my time, but just the idea of a place that I can truly be helpful to. Because we're talking about people. I don't go to one group of people and say, these are the important people, and then go to another group of people and say, these people are, eh. I don't separate it like that. For me, when I'm talking to a person, looking in their eyes, I'm seeing a depth of complexity and experience that's beyond me, but it's we're the same. And there's a brother or brotherhood or a sisterhood. It says, this is my sister, this is my brother. And I like to think that I put tremendous value on the person. So going to poor places sounds awesome because I would love to be that guy that that spent half of his life doing something because I cared about those people having good information, because they have ambition, and it's a shame to have ambition without a path to put it on. And
Yeah.
then I want to go to high places because who doesn't? I want to be on a big stage that talks to the whole world because showing off feels amazing. And it's like you can show your tricks, you can show what you've learned, and you can experience the thrill of all of that recognition too. So the TED Talk sounds very glorious, but the lowly place sounds very meaningful, thrilling in that way.
Totally. And if you can add value or like add that information to people who don't have connections to that sort of stuff, you can help them develop their strengths so that their voice can be better and more effectively shared.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. Yeah, giving people tool. I like to think of myself as a tool maker. It's my identity and my trade. I don't like I'm just doing this to my neck because I get these maybe it's from looking up so much, or maybe it's from I always get tight spots in my neck in my work. I always get that. But
I get a
I
shoulder
think of
pain
myself
right
as a
here.
man, do you? I get
Yeah,
nuts.
like shoulder has just been like firing a lot in the last couple of years. It's all
Really?
this time like
Man.
this. Yeah, painting.
Yeah, it's gotta have something to do because definitely my right side,
Oh
being
yeah.
right-handed, my right side acts upwards.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was saying identity. I like to identify as a tool maker,
Yeah.
and I don't like pursuing the reputation of being the next Michelangelo or master with masterpieces. I like pursuing the reputation of the guy that was super helpful. Like he made these really great tools. I would like that reputation if I could choose one. And so, like you said, being the guy that came and gave people a way to express and generate their ideas gives me a big thrill.
I dig it. That sounds great. Yeah, I'd say you're on your way.
I
Um,
think
uh,
so. Well, we'll
yeah.
see.
Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing. All right. So the final question here is drumroll. What's your definition of art?
Oh, that's a good one. I love practical definitions. When you're talking definitions, I like definitions that can be put into a program and not break it. So to speak. And the reason I say that is because as I was learning how to code, right, in my own application, I learned very quickly that you have to define variables. And when a variable isn't defined well, it causes all kinds of errors to happen because your program is always basing what it's going to do off of what things mean. And so in art, I think a working definition that doesn't cause confusion, cause more harm than help, is that it is the mastery of a craft that allows for you to create for the purpose of creating. And so I don't like to there are other definitions that I would contrast that to thinking that art is emotional expression. I actually don't think of art as expression. I think of art as the mastery of the tools that are going to make you able to accomplish expression. And that to me is a better working definition because I've heard the reason I think
Hold on,
emotional
just to
expression.
dive into that, or
Go
to
ahead,
break
go
that
ahead.
down. So you're saying all all art is the expression of a tool or a craft or a skill or a design, and it can have emotional components to it, but it doesn't have to be art. A lot of like art is the thing that's like underlying. Art is the vehicle that allows you to transport an expression or like an emotion if you want to, but it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
have
I would
to.
say that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's accurate. So to further clarify, we have art, the noun, that is the thing, the outcome, the piece that you've made. And so to define the noun, let's say that it's the vehicle, it's the object that, like you said, allows you to express. And so then let's say art, the verb, is the process, the mastery of tools, the process you use. And so I would say that I am doing art when I'm motor skills combined with my understanding. It's a skill set that specifically gives me a path to generate imagery, for generate art, the noun, for the sake of expressing some idea. So if we're in a world that is really challenging definitions and redefining a lot. And I like the Wild West. I like freedom. Go ahead, do it. But crazy things happen and things break. So when people redefine things, there's consequences, and you find that that definition is not fulfilling needed purposes. And in art, if you say that art is emotional expression, well, now we're having to accept that if a person wants to do harmful things to another person, then he can justify that as art. And then since people are generally accepting that art is important, they can say, well, it's justified because art is important and this person is doing art. And so I I don't like that. I think it breaks the society we live in. So I choose to frame it as the vehicle that gives you the ability to express both good things and bad things. Some people do have bad intentions. They want to destroy, they want to hurt. Art will allow them to do that. And some people want to bring life, do good things, and help people. Art can allow them to do that. It's a vehicle of expression, toward expression.
That's really interesting because it's thinking about art as like a tool, and a tool can be used for positive or negative. Like a hammer can be used for hitting nails in, but it can also be used for violence.
Yeah,
And really, like anything, like a car, any kind of tool, a gun, you can use it for hunting that can feed your family, or you can do bad things with it. Really, it
yeah,
comes down to like the intention behind it and the expression of the emotion that's underlying it. It's interesting that art is a tool that is generally almost exclusively used for positive intentions. Like, it's a place where like sensitive souls like find refuge.
yeah,
It's not really like
yeah,
a place for, like, in general, people aren't using art in negative ways. Some people do, like some street art, some stuff is like negatively based. But it's cool how like art like historically has been this like
yeah,
positive expression, like a healthy expression of emotions and feelings. And yeah, it's
sure.
interesting.
I think that's a really, really important topic to visit. It's good. It's a good subject to bring up, is that like the negative versus the positive. We see both of those things in art. Let's say, for example, you have one piece of artwork that others would categorize as pornography. They're looking at it saying, "Man, this is causing harm because of the effect it's having." And then other people are looking at it and saying, well, yeah, maybe one viewer is experiencing it as harmful, but that harm is happening because of your paradigm, and that paradigm needs to be challenged because that paradigm is actually harming other things. And so all kinds of things are a two-sided coin, and art exposes these matters, brings them to light. So I suppose the question I would insert into that subject is, does it have to be good or bad? Does it have to be negative or positive? Or could we accept that we, as growing, changing things, by definition, are not perfect because we're growing and changing? So, is it even possible for us to make an entirely positive thing? We would be claiming that it's a perfectly made positive addition to something. You would be claiming that. No, possible, yes, absolutely possible. But could we say that perhaps there is negative and positive in everything, that's somewhere on that spectrum? And in a free world, we have to be very careful about censoring if we want to maintain the artist's role as showing people things to feel.
Totally. because
Did
otherwise
that sound
they don't
like
have. No, that's great. This is great.
okay, okay, good, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, then the artist is restricted,
Yeah,
hamstrung, and then society is restricted, and
that's
human
it.
thought
Yeah.
and experience is going to be
Yeah.
bound.
I won't share exactly what work of art that it is, just because, there no need to unnecessarily hurt any feelings. But I've had murals that in the moment I was convinced that everything about this is awesome. You're welcome, society, for this mural. Just imagine my bold, I'm overstating it to make it clear. And then in hindsight, I'm looking at it thinking, not everybody received this well. It wasn't good for everyone. It wasn't good for all agendas. It didn't express everybody's desire. And I'm realizing even I have changed. There's things about it I don't like. I'm not just talking about the visual execution, I'm talking about the chosen content and what it represents. I'm thinking, yeah, I was a bit polarized in this idea, you know? And so looking at all of my old work brings up those feelings and forces me to admit that I'm not automatically making the world better. The world is already an amazing thing, and I'm fortunate to have my chance at stirring the pot. And I'm learning the importance of definitely trying to make things better where I go. I'm learning how to make that effort to strive toward making things better. And so we probably share that desire. We want to learn how to make things better. In art is constantly like wobbling the bicycle, trying to get it balanced. Because if you don't, you can't get it going. So you're out there, you're trying stuff, you're making stuff, and we're learning how to make things better. That's it. So we can appreciate each other's efforts. I think that's important.
Yeah, just bouncing ideas off of each other all over the place,
Yeah,
seeing how they feel,
yeah.
seeing if it wobbles the bike in the right way.
Yeah, I mean, I've required a lot of grace. People have given me a lot of grace as I've painted things. I went to this coffee shop and I painted this thing on the wall, and I think my creative mind kind of morphed it into something amazing when in reality it was weird. It was really weird. And it stayed on there for several years, and a lot of people commented, like not too extremely, but like, so what is the idea? Finally, after some growth, I was like, that's not a great piece. It doesn't make people feel good when they walk in this coffee shop. And, the people that watched me do that stuff, they weren't hard on me. They're like, he's an artist. He's an artist, man. He's trying stuff out. They're good. So I always remember that
Well, and
I've
that's
been
a
shown a lot of.
yeah, and a lot of people that's what they want out of their artists is to push the limits and explore, and
Yeah,
it's kind of expected from us to do that for ourselves and for the society. It's
right.
cool. It is cool
Yeah.
that people do give artists grace in that way.
Oh yeah. I feel like I owe it to
Mhm.
people around me because I think I've received a lot. Definitely.
There you go. All right, nice, nice. Okay, cool. So we now are at the point where we'd like you to tell everybody where they can follow you, where they can subscribe, um, all the
Oh,
things.
thank you. Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. The best place is YouTube right now. I have a Facebook page, Mural Joe on Facebook. That's the handle both on Instagram and on Facebook and on YouTube as well, Mural Joe, one word. I'm putting most of my energy currently into putting live videos on YouTube. And I've really grown to appreciate and love podcasts these days. And I was really excited when you responded because, like, yeah, all right, podcast, man. It's like I discovered them late, is what I
Hmm.
did. My wife got into listening to some favorite podcasts, and someone said, "Oh, you should check this out. It's pretty cool." I started listening to one, and I realized, hey, this is a pretty great way to spend a few hours. This is really cool. I grew to have a list of favorite podcasts. And so that inspired me to have a more casual live atmosphere on my YouTube channel. So on Saturday mornings, 8:30, I strive to most of the time be live and have an environment where we're responding to comments and just having a good time talking. And my goal is to eventually have guests on that show. I'm not doing as good of a job as you are for sure, Taylor, but I hope to get there where I'm having interesting guests to share their stories, experiences as well. So I would love for people to go to my YouTube channel. That really is the primary place. Muraljoe.com is my website, and that's a place I use to sell things. You can look at a small gallery of my paintings, and you can buy pre-recorded tutorials. There's a lot of hours painting clouds on a ceiling, various concepts that you want to learn the mechanics of if you want to purchase. And I put so much free on YouTube. I'll be the first to tell you the information is on YouTube. It's just that those collections have it organized for you so that you can get it in a chunk that it's all about that content, and I have to do the searching and support me at the same time. It's a friendly way to support me is purchasing downloads.
Nice. Sweet. All right, awesome. Everybody jump over there. And yeah, I've had a blast following you and subscribing to your channel on YouTube. I've learned
All right, man.
ton.
Thanks a lot.
Oh yeah, it's been great.
Thank you.
Yeah, my friend
I
Anna
always love
Parker.
suggestions.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, my friend Anna Parker, who's a muralist who was in San Diego, now she's in Georgia. We have just been following you for years, and we'll talk about like what, this video that you do or that video that you do. So yeah, we're big fans.
I really enjoyed my time with Anna. You treated me to a lunch when I visited. I came through
That's right.
Atlanta on a travel job. She is very good company. I really enjoyed that. And so, when the podcast gets back to her, I just want that to be known. That's a really nice memory I've got.
Oh yeah, Anna's a gem of a human. She's been
yeah.
We've been really fun creative collaborators. She was the artist, the mural artist that I worked with as an assistant for like a year and a half when she was here in San Diego, and then she moved away. And at that point, that was when I went all in on my own. And so
Sweet.
She really created
That's cool.
the runway for me to get to where I'm at. So I basically owe everything to Anna Parker.
Nice. That's cool. That's a good shout out.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back for part 2. Before we do that, can you give the listeners one bit of wisdom? And it can be about anything. Just like one bit of wisdom. Like quick wisdom.
Yeah. Okay. I think chasing titles, I like to say this rhyme to myself, and you're allowed to disagree. I think I rhyme it like this. To be the best is for helping the rest. To take on titles turns us to idols. And what I mean is that I desire meaning. And if I do aspire to be better than everyone else, let it be for the sake of helping everyone else. And if I'm after just the title, then I'm going to end up losing my helpfulness, which literally makes me like a stone carved idol to be worshipped that doesn't actually do anything. I don't want to be that. So I say that rhyme to myself. To be the best is for helping the rest. To take on titles turns us to idols.
That's so good.
Thanks, man.
I love it.
Thank you for boosting my ego. I write these things down, and I don't presume to make them important sayings, but it's really nice to have a place to sit.
I'm feeling like I'm envisioning a coffee table book with photos of your art throughout and these little quotes, and the quotes are like they're like meditations that you meditate on while you just like sit there and look at this like beautiful painting of like an African savanna at sunset,
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. I like it. Coffee table.
All right, cool. Well, we're going to take a break and we will be right back. Inspired? Your support means a lot to me. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your pods, share with other artists, and let's keep the creativity flowing. And we're back. All right. Joe,
All right.
How you feeling?
Great. I feel like my ego's been boosted. I got to express a bunch of thoughts. I'm feeling like that side of me is very satisfied.
Nice. Did you feel any like nervousness or anything going into this?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I always feel a little nervousness when I talk in front of anyone, even if it's just one person, I always feel a little of that. I'm a sensitive person, like I had said earlier. And so there's some mental management that happens while I'm in conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But it's nothing extreme.
I even notice it when like if I'm in like a group setting and everyone has to like say their name and something unique about themselves or something, and then it gets to you, and like even then, your butterflies get
Yeah,
going. You know, it's
the
like
butterflies get
talking in front of people. It just naturally gets your energy up. You're like, oh, here we go.
it does. Anticipation, that feeling. But if I've noticed that everyone is not like this. Some people feel it so much more than others. My son is so stable. He may get nervous. He may say he gets nervous, but he doesn't experience that spike of like chemical changes. For
Um,
me, it manifests in shaky hands. My voice starts to flutter, it's all kinds of outward signs if I start getting nervous. And I would say for me, it only takes a little bit of nervousness to start really seeing a lot of outward reaction. But I was always impressed with people that were very stable. They could maybe hold a bow steady or a gun steady when it was shooting time, like while you're pointing at the target. I was like, I could never be that guy.
yeah,
I could never do it. I just, am not made to be steady under nervous pressure.
but you hold
Maybe
the
I'll get
brush
there.
steady.
That's it. That's such a comfort zone. That's one thing that told me, hey, this is what God made me to do because it's the one thing I can do when a crowd is watching without faltering because there's no doubt in my mind. There's no faltering because there's no doubt. There's no anxiety about what if. It's like, no, I'm confident this is what I do.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. You're in the right spot. Okay,
Hey,
so
thanks, man.
I have this concept that I want to just bring up to you and ask you about, and it's kind of like a big theme that I'm pulling from what we talked about earlier. So there's
All
the
right.
concept of validation as an artist. Like one thing you said is like what we do as artists is like part of it's for validation.
Yeah, we need it.
Right. And you're right. Right. And there's this, and then you couple that with like an emotional fragility, and then also the wisdom that we're gaining through our lives and our experiences and our experiments, we could call them. And then there's
Yeah.
art as like a process of meditation and like processing of our emotions. And really, what I'm hearing is kind of like a lot of interpersonal emotional work that you're talking about. And I'm wondering, like, have you done? I mean, this all seems like stuff you talk about in therapy or like a men's group or like on a journey to South America to visit a shaman. Like, where how
Right.
does all
Yeah.
that tie in with like the deeper level stuff of your life and your experience? Like, what made you what made you an artist at on these levels?
Well, let's be honest. I was an artist from the beginning because it's what felt good. That was the motivation, and it was that simple. But as an adult, I was in such a broken state, being raised in a Christian family by anyone's common definitions, and feeling disenchanted with everything that wasn't happening the way I wanted it to, and being a fragile person that was protected and unable to talk honestly through my shortcomings. I needed to reevaluate what I was going to do with my life. And so I have a relationship with God. My motivation is so much centered around Jesus and who I imagine Jesus to be. He's an inspiration of great example of how to treat others. And in that journey of reevaluating who I want to be in that regard, it's been very challenging to maintain that goal and just accept the common labels and judgments that come with, oh, you're one of those people. Everybody already knows all about you when you say Jesus. They already know what you're all about, what you're trying to do. You're here to convert me. And that's not the case. You don't know somebody just because they like somebody. I like Jesus. That doesn't mean that you know all about my heart and why I'm here. It's a great mystery. Life is very mysterious, and I don't feel like I know anything at all. But that example of just putting others first, because that's where the real value is in loving your neighbor, your brother, your sister. Man, that is a total upside down way of thinking to what society kind of throws at us through media and many influences, definitions of success, getting to the top. And we live in this world where the teeny tiny percentage of people have the majority of the wealth. And that triangle maybe is like this. And upside down way of thinking of that is that we have the largest majority is really concerned about the well-being of the people below, so that, to be great is to be humble. To be great is to make yourself low and really enjoy and appreciate those who are lower than you. And that's the part I connect with. I don't connect with rules. Like, if you're a Christian, then you don't cuss, you don't listen to bad influence. You can easily make rules. I'm not into rules. I don't think they help people, and I don't build doctrine. I don't like theology. I don't like doctrine. I don't. That's not what I'm interested in building. I'm after meaning, relationship, things that bring joy. That's what I'm after, and so that's how faith in God connects to my work, because it's who I am. It's learning about what I'm truly after as a person, not trying to figure out what's actually true in the world. I don't have the ability to figure that out. But none of us actually need to know that food is real in order to eat it. You don't need someone to convince you that from childhood, the first time you experience good food, you smell it, you experience it, you're like, I'm going to put that in me. I'm going to eat it, because you just realize it's who you are. It's what you do. For me, it's that simple. It's that intuitive. I identify with that morality, that loving others as yourself. That's the bottom line. And that's my goal, is to be more and more like that. That's what I want out of life. So in my work, and before my life is over, I just want to be able to say that I truly went after that. I don't want people to talk about my art at my funeral. That's not what I want. I want them to say he was my friend. That's what I want. I want him to say he was a good friend. He brought me joy. And I want that kind of a story.
Yeah. Yeah, and it plays out in like in that statement you said about helping the rest and not becoming an idol. Because I mean, I'm not from a religious background, but from what I hear and interpret, like that's the main message of it is like be humble, be a good person, look after each other, and like Jesus didn't want to be an idol to be worshipped. He wanted to set an example that people could follow, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I used to kind of, something that well, I won't say you, I'll say something that I feel I was trained to do. A paradigm I was trained to have is that if people try to make being good to your neighbor important without putting the name Jesus on it, then it's completely counterfeit, completely artificial. And I disagree with that, because God in my mind is beyond definition, beyond comprehension, because we're talking about the being capable of originating all that we know, the author of all that we know. And so then I don't think it's just a matter of who I want to be. I believe that if God wanted people to be in a specific theological framework, he would have no problem at all appearing in person and saying, here it is, here's the truth. And we would all say, okay, because here we are in front of an all powerful being. Of course we're going to agree. There's not a choice in that matter, but we clearly have been intentionally placed in an environment that sorts out what our true concerns are. It sorts out what we actually want to be. And it takes away the obligation to say that this powerful system demands that I be this way, so I have to be this way. It completely makes it your choice who you want to be. So when a person chooses to be kind, they're putting value on kindness. And that's genuine. And that's valuable. And it's good. They are being godlike in that way. And I will not ever look down on it again, on kindness for the sake of doing good to others. I mean, that's like the best motivation ever. And so let God sort out when and where and how we all learn exactly what the technical truths of the universe are. But for me, I know who is my inspiration. I'll say that without shame so that I have an honest answer. But I also have tremendous admiration and value for others who are my brothers and sisters that are also wanting to live in a world of love and kindness.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
All right, man. Thanks.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, now, now I'm gonna dive back into this validation thing. Do you feel like there was like a hole in you or something that needed to be filled for like the validation from the validation side? Like, is there like a proving aspect to
Yeah.
your career?
Well, yeah, I'd say whenever you have brokenness, there's always like too much here, too little here. The hole you're talking about, I think is where you're not filling up real needs that you have in this aspect. You're feeling too much. For example, you're doing everything to boost your ego and you're doing nothing to develop your ability to be rejected. You're doing nothing. And so you're becoming this lopsided person that is only going into environments where your ego is boosted and you don't even have the ability to function when people give you criticism. That creates a hole and a surplus in the wrong place. And I definitely have worked through that type of brokenness, that type of imbalance. And I realized that I was trying to be somebody by having good enough work. That was it. I was trying to be somebody because I was told since I was a small child I was going to be famous. I was going to be a real great person, a real somebody. And all of those things were said to me when I was making some impressive drawing as a child. So there's an identity. I'm important because I can do this good looking artwork. And as long as I'm doing this good looking artwork, I'm important. So then moments come along where somebody does something that you haven't done, that someone else is getting praise and you're not, or somebody criticizes a piece you've done and you're like, what? How's that possible? I'm the greatest. And it's a form of delusion, or maybe not delusion, a paradigm. It's this real protected bubble of a paradigm. You're looking at the whole world in this fragile way that you're protecting all the time, and protecting it makes you unable to grow. So I needed to pay my bills. Like I said, I got married young. Marriage was hard. I realized I needed to make some changes in my attitude in order to be a likable, workable, adaptable, surviving person. And I wanted to be a good man. I did want to. I just it wasn't having success. And so little by little, I was just listening. I said, you know what? I need to just listen when my conscience is speaking and telling me little things. I'm just going to start listening, like I can't just go my whole life saying this is no big deal because it's little, because all there ever is little things. That's all there ever is. So I'm going to start listening to my conscience and little things. And I did. And I started making changes. And then when the opportunity to paint came along, I had been humbled and I had accepted that my lot in life is not to be a famous artist. So I approached mural painting as a means to pay bills, not a means to make a name for myself. And I quickly started to understand there was a whole lot of power in not needing to be somebody, because I was like learning really fast. I was learning stuff. And it felt like I fell into what I was made to be when that need to have my ego boosted was gone. I came into who I was meant to be. My mind started taking in information that it was meant to hold on to. And I didn't have an ego that was stopping it from happening. And I was seeking real answers. And I was doing all kinds of work that looked subpar and weird and experimental, but I was okay. I was all right. I was trying to learn. I was excited about learning. And I got excited about sharing what I was learning with others. And that excitement really helped divert my attention away from my own shortcomings too. It's like, yeah, it doesn't look great, but look how it's helpful to these people leaving comments on the video. That's it.
That's cool. I mean, like what you're talking about is like an ego death, and different
Yeah, I
people
suppose
talk
so.
about,
Yeah.
right? It's like the quieting of your ego, and when your ego
Quieting of ego. Yeah.
can be quieted, calmed, like
Yeah.
minimized,
Would
then
you
I would.
would you also say that it's ego if you're struggling with identity? You know, you need to be somebody and then you're protecting your identity. You know, I think a lot of people might associate that with ego.
Oh yeah.
Right?
One version of the concept of the ego that I heard a while back in this book called the Celestine Prophecy, and then I just keep coming back to it, is like we're basically existing in our soul regularly. This is who we are right now.
Okay.
Where when you're comfortable, you're in your soul. You're not trying to garner energy from others around you or any situation. But as soon as you get uncomfortable, let's say you're in a social situation where you don't know people, or you feel like you have to like defend yourself or back yourself up or whatever, your ego is like these goggles that slide onto your eyes, and then and then you're looking through a different lens. And at that
Mm,
point, what you're trying to do is gain energy, and you're trying to get it from those around you, and you're trying to like build up yourself. And so what you're doing there is you're doing it for like kind of like selfish reasons, because you feel a deficit in energy, and so then you're trying to pull it in to feel stable and satisfied. And then, I mean, what you're talking about is like at a certain point, you just stop doing that. And you're like, I don't need to build myself anymore. Instead, I can just operate from the level of your soul, which is balanced. And then, and so much magic happens from that place. I've had my own version of an ego death, and multiple times. And, you know, the sunglasses are always there. They're always like, you know, ready, but through mindfulness
yeah.
and awareness of yourself and your interaction with others and your intention, I feel like we can sort of like maintain that soul space. And there's so much power in the soul. And I think that your statement of like doing art for the rest and not becoming an idol, you know, the idol is like the calcified version of your glasses being on too long,
Yeah,
you
yeah. I
know?
would have made that same connection. Right. I think you're right on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like when you're just operating from your heart, from you, from like the pure version of yourself, which is as close to the humbleness of a person, you know, like Jesus, like he wasn't doing it for himself. He was doing it for everybody else, all of humanity. And like that is like that's operating from the soul, thinking of others, like connecting with others, being a good person, and putting your own needs, you know, on an equal playing field or even lower than the needs of others. And I think
Yeah,
that,
good. Yeah, that's it. That's
right,
good.
like so much magic can come to you at that point too, because then you're open. You're not looking for yourself. You're looking, and like back to what you talk about with like your observations that you would like to share with the world. I feel like a lot of those observations can happen from a space of like neutral ego and soul balance, where you're able to sit there and really like perceive the world better, because your mind isn't thinking about your own self and what you're going
Right.
to gain from any situation and how you can pull in more energy. You're complete, so you can just be like as neutral of an observer as is possible.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I don't want to take our conversation into the weeds, but I think the
This is what part 2 is all
electrical
about. It's all about the weeds. It's great.
I I'm fascinated with electricity. One thing I learned in high school level electronics was that a device, when it's plugged in to a power source, pulls the current. And we always think of the current as pushing, you know, like it's trying to get electricity out, it's pushing it through. But an electrical engineer, a tech, you know, probably, I'm sure there's different views. You know, electricity is mysterious. But my teacher said something that I just thought was a great view. He said, well, it's actually pulling. You know, you got to think of it as how much it's going to pull. And when you think of it in that way, it totally makes sense that you can take this tiny little light bulb and hook it into an electrical circuit, your socket that's capable of putting out 120 volts and I don't know how many amps, but it has potential to put out way more than enough to blow that light bulb to smithereens. But The light bulb just pulls what it needs. It just pulls from that. And so I guess my thinking in that is sometimes the opposite, getting energy from the opposite perspective is what causes it to flow. That you're actually tapping into the way things work. So the way things work with getting your mind to do its best and accelerate and really be what you're made to be is that humble attitude you described, where you're not going from the one side is putting the I'm great first and then trying to push out all the knowledge and the performance and doing that stuff. And it's a different set of priorities. But then on the flip side, when you have this humility, you become this vessel that things can flow through without resistance. And you find yourself collecting all this knowledge. Oh, this is cool. Oh, wow, that's neat. That's cool. Someone comes along and says, I don't like the way that looks. Interesting. Why? Oh, that's good knowledge. It just starts like flowing. It starts flowing, and you don't have this resistance that's saying, well, that's not right. That's not what I am. That's not what I'm trying to. You don't have all that resistance. So perhaps that's getting way out there trying to make things relate that maybe don't. But I feel like the natural world totally resembles these concepts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like the ego does create resistance where, like, yeah, when you're getting a critique from somebody, if you're in your ego and somebody says something that they don't love about a painting of yours, you're going to get all bent out of shape about it. But like you said, when you're just in your soul space, when you're neutral, when your sense of validation or your sense of wholeness isn't based on your egoic pursuits, then if someone says something about a piece that they don't like, you'll take it as critique, as like you said, I'm learning something about perspectives that I didn't know about. And
Yeah.
it won't get you bent out of shape. In fact, you're going to get excited about it because you're like, oh man, turns out someone else feels something different. And this is so interesting. It's like a data point, and you can just like be neutral about it and then grow from it rather than be like all bent out of shape about it. And of course, there's going to be dissenting opinions of every single thing ever. Like, who are
Right.
we?
Right.
What thing does the entire world agree on? Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. When you start posting things publicly, that's something that has to develop quickly, is thicker skin, because you start saying, okay, there's always going to be the number of dislikes, the number of likes, there's always going to be the number of negative comments, the number of positive. It's always going to be some number. You
Yep.
just accept it.
Just accept it.
Yeah, that's good. I think there's a way to sort through criticism so that it's helpful to you. There's a way to sort through it. You can identify right away when criticism is coming from the party that you're trying to please, you know? Or let's say, let me say that better, coming from the mindset that you're trying to appeal to. And so that it's not about the person, the individual. There's a
It's like a school
mindset
of
you're
thought.
trying to appeal to. Yeah. And so when someone looks at your piece that you have made with a bunch of colors to make a colorful experience that you want to pull people in like eye candy and make them just talk about the colors. Well, when someone comes and says, you know what, I don't quite understand why this color is next to that one, I get this bad vibe from it. Well, that's totally helpful because that's the mindset you're appealing to. But when someone comes along and says, you must not know about the golden ratio, you have to understand when criticism is expressing to you that they don't like your picture because their expectations are something completely different than you're even aiming for in the first place. You can't just take any, and it's obvious when someone just comes along and starts insulting you, saying, I don't like your work, it's ugly. That's a no-brainer. You need to just ignore that. You have to really sort through criticism that can point you toward where you're trying to go. And I think you can.
Oh, totally. And I think one way you can do that is you can key in on their language. So one thing that really grinds my gears about art critiques is that people use the word like all the time. Like I like this about that, or I like that, or I love that, or whatever.
Yeah, they do use a lot of that.
It's really whether I like your painting is kind of irrelevant in terms of a critique, I would say. I feel like what we're trying to do with a critique is we're trying to help each other make the best, most successful painting. So if I say, I really love
Mm,
that the way that you did this, the lighting on the sunset, that's great, cool, kudos. But if I'm really critiquing your work, then I would say something more along the lines of, the way that you did that sunset works well. I think to make it more successful, I would have maybe really pushed that highlight of the orange more, right? It's not, we're not talking about likes or dislikes or love or whatever, like, because everybody has their opinions on
yeah.
things. And
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
place where, the golden ratio comment, that's kind of got a negative connotation to it. And really, like, I think you know, they're, yeah, it's being critical, but it's not being like helpful, I guess. And then people
Right.
that
Yeah.
saying whether or not they like it, great, cool. But like, what can we do to make this better?
Sure. Yeah. And that is a genuinely hard thing. This is good for me to hear you say because I'm somebody that wants to encourage first. Encouragement is job one. Validate the person is my priority. So I'll say what I like about the picture, not as a critique, as an appreciation for the work that you've done. Let's
Yeah.
find the good. The first thing I want to do is find something to like about it. I want to find something to like about it. And that is because there's always something to appreciate about a piece. Even if you think the whole piece is unattractive, there's something that you can say is done well. You can always find something and just focus on that. That's a great shade of blue.
Yep.
Great shade of blue. Thank
Especially
you for
because
using that shade of blue.
people are probably coming to you for connection and validation as well. And
Right,
so
right.
you're connecting with the human in doing that.
Yeah, and I do get people that express just what you're saying. I think what you described is real important because people will hear me say I like, and they're like, and they're thinking, or they'll say to me rather, well, how about a real critique? They're after a real critique. They don't just want to hear fluff. And so
Yeah.
then those are moments when I haven't really identified why they're here, and that's good. That's good to see that. So helpful tools, right? I think the best critique I would want is somebody that has some intel on why it looks like the goal of my picture was to accomplish this, but in their perception, it's not quite there. It's back here. But I happen to know that this method can actually get it up to here. So here's a critique. If you would have added what was the example you gave? If you would have added more orange to the sky or something, um, when someone offers that tangible tool. I think if you would have added more orange, then that would have made that light jump out the way it looks like it's intended to be. Yeah, that's what I would call, I think, to your point, helpful critique.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what we're all trying to do here is just make our art, as
Yeah.
successful and as effective. We want that vehicle to get the passenger to the destination.
There you go. Well said. Well said, my friend. A wise man once said. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah, you're right.
awesome.
Well, if you start using the word success, it's important to have some further clarification on what success is because people have different things they want to accomplish, right?
Right. Right. So that's an important question. And that's another thing that I like to, when I'm talking about art with people who aren't like traditional art people, is I like to say one thing that we should think about is, or ask ourselves is like, what is the artist trying to accomplish? And what are they trying to get us to feel? What can we read from this painting? Like, what's important? What's the message?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Yeah, right. That's true because yeah. So I wonder if, going back to you're kind of sparking some thoughts here and going back to the critiquing subject first, doing a good job of identifying what the artist is intending to do would be a good thing. Because what good is a critique that's telling you what you're supposed to be doing? Like no artist is trying to hear what they're supposed to be doing with their time. I'm not trying to say what art you're supposed to be making. So if I give you a critique based on a motive that I don't even know, I'm just telling you what you should be doing with your time. in your life. But if I first understand, well, it really appears here that seductivity is the intent. And that is very helpful if you're going to give further critique about how to achieve that seduction. Is seductivity a word? I think I might have made a word there, but
You might have made a word. It might be a word.
it's all right.
It feels like
I'm a
it works.
creative.
You have free license. That's the thing. You're an artist. You can do whatever you want.
It felt right. It just felt right, man.
And it feels good.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, I
Right,
gotta jam out. I think we could sit here and talk for 5 more hours, and I think we'd have quite a lot to say.
Sure.
But yeah,
Yeah.
this has
It's a
been
good
great.
time, man.
This has been
Yeah.
great having you
Yeah.
on. I look forward to it. We'll have you on in another couple of years, check in on your 5-year plan with spreading the word to all the people out
Yeah.
in the art world.
Okay, sweet. Well, it's been an honor. Pleasure to be on here, and a very pleasant surprise that you got back to my email real quick and made it happen. I'll be excited to see how the official release of this episode goes.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be awesome. All right, well, yeah, say bye to the guests, I guess.
Hey, see you later, everybody. Thank you for listening to me. Nothing better in life than to be listened to, right?
Love it.
All right.
Cheers. Thanks for tuning in. If this spoke to your journey, spread the word, follow the pod, and keep chasing what lights you up.